It's spring week 8 here in Apothecaria, and in this rest episode, Mistress Sweetwater does a little retail therapy in a way only a witch can. Hey there everyone, welcome to Drawing Expressions. I'm Parz, and yeah, this is a continuation of the Apothecaria episodic story writing thing that I've been doing for a very long time now. And yeah, we're starting to close in on the finale, and at the same time we still have some story to get through. So before we get into what the story is and all of that, let's move into the things I like to cover first. The first being that guidelines are the guidelines of the day. Rules, who needs them? Guidelines. Guidelines. I think you should do this, but it's up to you. There we go. Okay. Planner and the pantser. So the planner section today is the same planner section as always. It is the story, narration, and the creative mixing bowl and how it came together. The pantser section today, we're going to be talking a little bit about something I have deemed or dubbed prompt shopping and why maybe you shouldn't do it. Guideline, but I'm suggesting you don't do it. And we'll talk about all of that. But before we get into any of it, let us breathe and stretch. So first, sit upright, have your sit bones comfortable on your chair, and take a nice deep breath in. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and hold. 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, and hold. 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale in. Nice stretch. Nothing too severe, just gentle. Okay. All right. Yes, we don't want any stretch-related injuries on this channel. That's for someone else's channel, not this one. So I'm just going to call up my story here. This is called Vapour Trail, and this is how it goes. There's a story I heard once, some time ago. It goes like this. One day, 2 monks were walking along and came across an old woman who was trying to cross a river. Because the river was wide and flowed quickly, she feared for her safety. The junior of the 2 monks passed by her and crossed. The elder of the 2 offered to help. She climbed onto his back, and he carried her safely across. Many hours later, the elder noticed the junior had something to say, and so asked him what was on his mind. The junior monk confronted the elder, saying, "We are forbidden to consort with women, let alone have any sort of physical contact with them, and yet you allowed that old woman to climb onto your back." The elder monk replied, "I left her at the riverbank, but you have been carrying her with you for hours." One idea, of the many interpretations possible, is that you act and that once you have, to let it go. It's supposed to remind you to stay in the present moment. Try as I might, the episode with the mayor is still on my back. It's done, dealt with, over, finished, and you'd think after everything I'd experienced in Blast Fire Bog, which, let's be honest, was incredibly cool. Super strange? Yes. Exhausting? Also yes. But so worth it. I'd have exorcised the whole thing, but I hadn't. It was still niggling at me, still occupying my mind, still slung on my back like an involuntary backpack. I needed to do something that would give me something else to focus on. Business had been good, I had plenty of silver, and so a bit of retail therapy might be the thing. If I couldn't exorcise the thoughts away, maybe I could spend them away. Which is why I was on my way to Bits and Bob's. If nothing else, spending some time with Bob would be a lovely thing. Once in town, I noticed a couple of things. One was that there were more people out and about than I'd seen before. I didn't recognize anyone, not that that was any surprise given how little time I'd spent in the town and how few, relatively, people I'd treated. What was a surprise was how quiet people got when they spotted me. I tried telling myself it was because they were seeing a witch and that it carried some weight, but I didn't believe me. At Bits and Bob's, Madame Wintergleam was finishing up a transaction, chatting away with Bob. That is, up until I entered. Actually, not quite true. It wasn't until she noticed who had entered that her pleasantries quickly petered out. She avoided looking at me, bid Bob a fine day, and left. She didn't even acknowledge my greeting. I decided it was because she hadn't gotten over my quitting her class. I was already carrying the mirror. There was no way I was going to carry more. I greeted Bob, and he returned it, but it was awkward. There was definitely something going on. Bob definitely knew what, and I was definitely not leaving until I'd found out what it was. Bob, originally I came here to do a bit of shopping, but now that I think on it, I'm here for two things. A bit of shopping, and to find out why everyone is acting so weird. He smiled at me, nearly sincerely, before asking if there was anything in particular I had my eye on. Yes, the truth. What's going on? He deflated a bit, grimaced, then said, "There's a rumor going around saying that you and the mayor are, I didn't like where that was going, but I wasn't going to have the rest of the sentence left unsaid. Where what, Bob? He refused to look me in the eye. Affair. People think you are having an affair with the mayor. An affair? Why in the world would anyone think that? With the terrible secret rumor no longer secret, he started talking a bit more freely. The other night, the mayor had had a lot to drink. Before he left the Copper Fox, he announced he was going to your cottage to, as he put it, show that upstart of a girl who's in charge of High Rannoch. And people watched as he staggered towards your place. It was his not returning until late the next morning that the whispers started. Fury started to burn inside me, but it quickly died out with the memory of that fat, hungover, half-naked man falling awkwardly out of my tree. Okay, I said at first, then tried to say the rest without my laughter interrupting. Bob, did you and I have an affair when you came to me for help? He still looked miserable, still wouldn't meet my gaze. They're saying you're a homewrecker. He has kids. Bob, I repeated, did you and I have any sort of inappropriate anything when you came for treatment for your kludgy mouth? He mumbled, No. No. Then, after a deep breath, I continued. I don't know what the mayor was thinking when he was drunk or why he said what he said. I won't talk about anything concerning my patients, any of them, and I looked sharply at Bob, but please know that nothing inappropriate or unprofessional occurred between he and I. Bob just nodded, dumbly. I don't know if anyone will believe me, and frankly, I don't care, which was an obvious lie, but what the heck. But of all the people in this wretched town who I want to know the truth, it's you. He gave a little laugh, if a bit forced. I'm sure this will just blow over in time. It's just a rumor. Yeah, right. There was no way this rumor was going to blow over quickly. Mentally, I watched as my reputation, my business, my livelihood was going to be destroyed by an arrogant drunk. The laughter in my soul tamped down as that scenario played out in my head. I needed to get out. Quickly. It was too much. Just all too much. But I couldn't get myself to step out the door, let alone walk another gauntlet of unspoken judgmental shame. So I grinned, against everything I was feeling, forced myself to stand upright, and asked if he had any brooms for sale. Talking merchandise seemed to put more normalcy back into the room. Oh, sure, all sorts really. Different handle lengths, bristle types, wood choices, colors. I interrupted. Flying ones. Do you have any of those? Of course. Flying ones. Of course. I closed my eyes. Bob, what is it now? He cleared his throat. Well, I do have one. She's not much, but Great, I'll take it. would you like to see it first? Nope. How much is it? It's, would you like a helmet? Nope. How much? Do you need instructions on flying her? No. Right. Okay, I'll just package it up for you and no need. You go get it. I'll leave the silver on the counter and meet you out back. Okay, great. How much silver should be waiting on the counter for you? Would 100 be asking too much? 100 it is. I'll count it out while you get it. Bob stepped out and I just stood there, shaking. Of all the patients I'd seen, and a few of them had stayed overnight at the cottage while I'd collected reagents, why had this particular patient triggered such a rumor? No doubt his announcement to the Copper Fox patrons had been important, but has that been all? Was it being helped along by someone, and if so, why? I shook my head to clear it, tried once again to take off the mayoral backpack that had now seemingly fused itself to me, counted the silver onto the table, and went out the back to see my new purchase. Given Bob's hesitancy, I didn't expect to see much. I wasn't disappointed. Brooms can come in a variety of shapes and types. Most, of course, don't fly. But of the ones that do, you can't simply look at it to know if it flies. There's a magical feeling, I guess is what I'm trying to say, and not everyone resonates with every broom. I'll note that I knew none of this before I talked with Bob. Mouse-Eye told me all this after I got home. So while I could have just paid a huge amount of money to sweep my floors, it turns out I lucked out again. If the land is responsible for my run of luck, it has to be working overtime. When I first laid eyes on the broom, I instantly saw what Bob saw, an ill-kept, bristle-bare, knotted and mottled handle relic of a prior age. Here it is, mistress. Bob pointed to it almost apologetically. I bought it as part of an estate sale of sorts. I was giving an inventory list, and this was listed as a frying broom. I paid top silver for it. Sight unseen, you see. I've just been storing it, not sure what to do with it, and I hope you're happy with your purchase. Of course, if it isn't to your satisfaction, I'll give you a full refund. I heard Bob, and I guess on one level I listened, but on another I was connecting to this unsightly thing. But there was more here than met the eye. Of course, it's an older model, so doesn't have the lumbar support or the new cushioned memory bristles that are now being produced. Of course, those can go for a lot more than 100 silver, so I hope you feel, after setting eyes on her, it's fair. Deep within its twisted handle, arcing from its half-circle burst of bristles, I couldn't identify what they were made of, there was something. Subtle, for sure, but undeniable. She was perfect. He had it propped up, bristles up, next to the door. Here, let me get it for you. As Bob reached for it, it shot past his closing hand and landed neatly in mine. Bob looked over his shoulder at me and at the broom that had just come to life. Oh, I didn't know you're an experienced broom wrangler. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. I was deep in the experience of the broom and all that she was. After a few seconds, I released her and had her hold steady for mounting. Now, there's a misconception that all flying brooms are flown by sitting on the handle. Not true. Not only would it be terribly uncomfortable, it'd be absolutely unstable. They'd be so easy to slide off to one side as the broom did a barrel roll on the other way, which is why most brooms have you sit cross-legged on the bristles. I climbed on, kicked off the ground, and launched. My eyes were pointed at the sky. I didn't want to look back and down at high Rumorville. The load I'd been carrying? Gone. The confusion and hurt from hearing the ridiculous rumor? Disappeared. My anger at it all? Evaporated, eviscerated, eliminated. And I was simply elated. It felt so good to be flying again. Just for kicks, I flew through a cloud. That feeling of the air whooshing past. What a rush. And the trail I left in the sky dragging a bit of cloud along. In that moment, I named her Vapour Trail. I was like a kid in a candy shop. No, I was like a dog, one of those breeds that loves water, playing on a riverbank. No, I was like myself lingering in a warm bed on a cool morning. I just loved every minute and I really, really didn't want to stop. So I didn't. I swooped and swerved and dove and climbed. If I could think of it, Vapour Trail could do it. There was one moment where I did start thinking about a barrel roll and Vapour Trail started rolling. But it was that errant thought that led to an amazing discovery. My butt was held to the bristles like iron to a magnet. I inverted all the way through the roll and, while discombobulating, wasn't fatal. Good to know! After flying for a few hours, I decided to take the opportunity to land and stretch my legs. Sitting cross-legged is only comfortable for so long. I found an island within the Cloud Isles with a pond and some trees for shade. It was good to lay back on my own private island and to take a dip, or 3, in my private swimming pool. Ah, the world with all its cares and concerns and troubles was down there. This place, this peaceful, solitary place was just lovely. I think if I ever retire from witching, I'll set myself up here. As good as it all felt, the warm sun, the cool water, the comforting shade, I also wanted to feel the wind and race across the sky and do loop-de-loops and be silly. The day was getting on and I was getting tired, but I also wanted to check out one last place. I'd spotted an island that sported a large cave, the mouth of which was so big I could fly into it. I couldn't resist. I flew more cautiously as I entered the cave. It was a little tight, but totally workable. With the discovery, I found myself wondering if I'd ever walk anywhere ever again. Looking at the textures within the cave walls was like looking at clouds and seeing different shapes and things. Here a wing, there a serpentine body, over there a giant closed eye. It was fun letting my imagination run free. And then my imagination started working overtime, seeing myself as I flew hither and yon with kids coming out from houses and buildings pointing up at me as I came to visit. It felt so good, so affirming as the local witch. A sound, I suppose what I imagined the kids would sound like, escaped through my lips, and it echoed. What fun! Echoes. And so I let loose with a little bit of nonsensical song and played with the sound bouncing back. The roar that followed wasn't expected, nor the 2 eyes that opened deeper in the cave. It was then that I realized the winged snake shape I'd disregarded was 1. Not part of the cave, but instead lived in it, and 2. It was a wyvern. There was a part of me, for a quick second, that tried discerning whether the creature in front of me was a wyvern or a dragon. That small part stopped its zoological classification and instead decided to table the discussion for later. The wyvern made to launch at me, and I found myself drifting backwards. I didn't know the broom came with reverse, but I'm glad it did. I got clear of the cave mouth and shot off, hoping the wyvern would either lose interest, with me now being gone, or would lose sight of me and break off its pursuit. Neither happened. All the practice I'd gotten in was paying dividends. I wasn't losing it, but I wasn't being snatched out of the sky and turned into wyvern food. Every move I tried, it responded to. Every attempt to outrace, outspin, or outroll didn't work. It nearly got me time and again. I didn't dare stop, didn't dare land and hide, didn't dare do anything. I couldn't lose it in the cloud or two that was up here. I needed a plan. And then I spotted my chance. Laughing out loud with fear and hope, I knew it was a desperate move, but I had nothing left. I flew into a canyon of sorts being formed as 2 big islands drifted close to each other. It narrowed so much that it could fit me but couldn't accommodate the wyvern's wingspan. It had to maneuver itself to keep from being crushed. After shooting through the gap, I dashed for a nearby forested hiding spot and hunkered down. The wyvern wasn't ready to give up. Instead of flying all around the canyon I'd exited, plus the islands surrounding it, including my current hiding spot, it wasn't until well after sundown that it finally relented and left. After all the excitement, you'd think I'd have made my way home. And you'd be right, to a point. You see, as I started my way back, or what I assumed was the way back, I spotted blue-green light coming from a height, and I just had to check it out. There are 2 things I learned. 1, there is a lighthouse on top of Moonbreaker Mountain, and 2, it emits the most beautiful, it's not quite light, but also not quite water. When I told Mausai about it later, he said it's called plasma. I called it fun. I could fly through it and have trails of it swirl in my wake. I must have done that for, well, I lost track of time. But it wasn't that long, but it felt like I'd spent all night playing. It was still night, however, when I got my bearings and finally headed home. I landed, stretched, yawned. Spent though I was, my spirit was still riding a high. I dragged my aching body into the cottage, broom in tow. The welcome glow of pop helped settle me. I was back in my home, my space, my safe space. I breathed a sigh of relief. Mouseye looked up from his place inside the spirit house. I see you bought a broom, and I'm guessing you went up to the Cloud Isles. What'd you do up there? A mischievous grin crossed my face. You want me to tell you about my adventures today? Mouseye closed his eyes, knowing full well what was coming, but still played along. Yes, tell me about your adventures today. What did you do? Tell me everything. Without giving the necessary pause to give the answer the punch it deserves, I jumped in with, Must I? Smiling at each other, sharing in the joke, we laughed. And then we watched, each from our own vantage point, as Pop began to change in hue, in intensity, in color. She began to expand at the middle and dip at the poles, and then, suddenly, she divided into 2 Pops, each the same size as the other, floating side by side, indistinguishable. Then one of them floated over to the broom and attached itself to the end of the handle, making a running light of sorts. Mouseye's and my gaze met again, and with a mutual shrug of incomprehension, we wondered what else this night would bring. And that is the end of the story. Okay, so after reading that story, I think it's time for a little breathing and stretching. Here we go. Let's take a nice deep breath in. Always feels good. Let's talk about how that episode came together. What are the elements inside the creative mixing bowl? First element is the prompts. So let's pull that up. And here we are. So here you go. Grab a screenshot. And 3, 2, 1. And here we go. Back. Okay. Now call up my notes for talking about a couple of highlights within the prompts. So the first bit to talk about is that Alicia and I we were still working with, and I'm using it in past tense now because Apothecaria has ended. In my writing world, my presentation world, it's still going on, but in my writing world, it's over. So we were still doing joint decisions and discussions on how we were going to progress with our prompts. We wanted the prompts to be the same, as always, but we were going to go in 2 very different directions with them. So we decided that it was time to purchase brooms. Now, for me, this was an absolute necessity in order to get access to the Cloud Isles. If you recall, there are 4 locations that at the very start of the game are locked. And the Cloud Isles is only available to be reached if you can fly. Now, if you don't have wings on your back, or you don't have a familiar who can jump you there, which Alicia does have, I did not, however, so the only way I could get there was to buy a broom, and so it was time, let's go get the broom. And for her, yes, she has a familiar who, yes, in theory, can transport her to the Cloud Isles, but her familiar was quite, could teleport her involuntarily to places and then out of places, and would happily do so. So having a broom would add a little bit of freedom from being forced into only traveling whenever her familiar wanted to let her go. So yeah, it was her relationship with her familiar. I talked a little bit about it last episode. Yeah, it was trying, definitely trying. So we both got to experience the sense of freedom that the broom brings, and also to access the Cloud Isles. For mine, I decided that I was going to purchase mine at Bits and Bob's, and so go to meet Bob, and that meant having to go to the village. And so when you go to a location, of course, what we're doing is we're pulling an environmental prompt, or you walk into a place in the village counts, and you pull a prompt and you say, okay, what happens because you have walked into the village. And what we drew was that there is a rumor swirling around town. And what is that rumor? How did you find out about it? Is it true? Is it not true? Blah, 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 blah. And this just wove really nicely into the last episode where the mayor he made an intro, and he was drunk on my property, and he was given a hangover cure. So now we're taking it further. And it just so happens that this prompt came up, and it really helped to push this piece of the narrative forward. It was very well timed. Another bit to note is that we did collect three reagents up in the Cloud Isles, and I did not mention them in this narrative. Oftentimes, actually, I think probably every single time up until this point, I had mentioned them. I opted to not this time, and that's perfectly fine, because you can just notate it on your inventory, your reagent inventory. I've collected this and this and this. You don't actually have to make mention of it every single time if you don't want to. You just okay, there it is, and off you go. The last thing to note is that the Wyvern was actually a last-minute addition. So we had drawn the prompt, and so the village, and there was the rumor and whatnot. So yeah, so we decided to pull one extra prompt. In going to the Cloud Isles, the prompt that we got was the Aurora, or the lighthouse up on top of Moonbreaker Mountain, which beautiful, cool. It was a neat thing to see, but it's also pretty quick. Just oh, it's there, you experienced it, boom, move on. And we wanted something more. And so we did pull one additional prompt, and the Wyvern came along, and so it added a little bit of tension and fun and what have you. So yeah, so this is one of those occasions when the prompts we felt were a little bit lacking, and so we pulled one extra one to weave it into this episode's narrative. Which brings us to what was written before. And the one thing that I'm going to make mention here, and I could mention several things, that I sort of pulled forward. But the one that I really wanted to bring in, again, and this is the mayor equals bad guy. And it was a thread that was started last episode. And so we are carrying it through on this episode, and because of the rumor prompt, we're adding some backstory onto the whole thing. And now to the imagination piece. So yeah, what I wanted to mention here is that in putting the episode together, there was a few things that really sparked my imagination, my creativity, and so I really enjoyed writing about them. The first was that imagined feeling of flying. I've never parachuted or hella glided or anything like that, where you're you're sort of in the elements. Maybe the most has been like you stick your head out of a car window or out of a sunroof type of thing, and that's been ages and ages and ages since I've done anything like that. So remembering some of those feelings of like, like a full body experience of being out and flying around, and reading about how people have these experiences of they just feel so free when they're flying their airplanes or their whatever it is that they're out flying. So I wanted to bring all of that, and of course you're not ensconced inside a fuselage or anything like that. It's all very open, and so to have that the feeling of the fresh air, the feeling of the sun, the feeling of going through the clouds and feeling the cool mist, all of it. It was I got to sort of fly in my mind's eye, even if I'm not going to be doing it in reality, in real life. So there was that. Another thing that I really enjoyed is I love the story that we started with about the two monks, and I should have mentioned in that they're Buddhist. It is a Buddhism story, and it is intended to keep you in the present moment and to remember that you just let things go if you don't need to carry them. And so I really enjoyed being able to bring in that piece of a different religion, a different culture, into something, a story, and that perhaps it's a good reminder for me, and because I get to write it down and remember what it is and how exactly should I write it down, and then also I get to share it with you. So yay. I also got to tease even a little bit more about the nature of Mistress Sweetwater, her, who is she really? Continuing just to drop little things here and there. I would be amazed if anyone at this point could point to something and say like, oh, I know that she is blank. I know what is going on. If you think you know, drop it in the comments. If you're right, I'll be flabbergasted. Except there's one person I know who knows. Lovely Lady Love. That'd be cheating. But everybody else, nobody knows. And so yeah, so it's a fun little thing where I get to just keep dropping little tidbits, little breadcrumbs, and at some point, maybe you'll figure out what it is, the secret is, before it actually gets revealed. So so what I've done so far with this is, again, we've had this unusual trip while she was on mushrooms, and she became part of the mushroom network, and now she has this affinity to this broom. So what else might be going on? The last thing I wanted to mention here is this. I actually got a couple of hits on doing mentioning whether I don't even know if this would be, some of these I guess would be references and some of these would be Easter eggs. So the name of the broom, Vapour Trail, is the name of an album, and also there's a song on the album named Vapour Trail, and this is by one of my favorite bands, Rush. And so it came from a more modern, or a more one of their later albums in their career. And then I was also able to put in a bit. It was kind of taken, it's not word for word, and it's definitely adapted into the situation that she found herself in. But the song is from Moving Pictures. It's one of their, it's like probably their top selling album ever. And then the tune itself is called Red Barchetta. The song of a guy who goes driving, and it's illegal to be driving his particular car on this particular road, and he is chased by these tremendously huge vehicles, and he makes his escape by crossing through a one-lane bridge, which these big air cars cannot traverse. So I had sort of the same thing. It also is, reminiscent of a good number of sci-fi films where, the small, nimble spaceship is able to navigate through the meteor, the asteroid field, rather than the giant clunky ships that get blown up as they crash into them. Take your pick, but I'm going with Rush. All right, so that brings us to the Panzer section, where I want to talk about what I'm calling prompt shopping, and why you may not want to do it. So let's set a scenario. Let's just say in your prior episode, there's a mayor who's half drunk and naked and very hungover, and he's on your property. You give him the hangover tonic, send him on his way. And how do you follow up with that? Well, one idea is that there's this rumor floating around town. There's this, and so, yay. Right? So that was the prompt. So if I had taken the opportunity to go through the list of prompts that are available when you walk into the village, again, there's 13 of them, I could have picked this one, right? Because it would just slot right in really nicely. It would make the narrative very smooth, and it's very clear as to where things are going with this particular prompt. And so having picked it on my own, that is what I would have called prompt shopping, that you're actually looking for the perfect prompt, looking for the one that is going to work best for me in this situation. Now, as wonderful as it was to have something that showed up randomly and to work so well, was great, it was lovely, it was wonderful. Is that something I would recommend that you do? And the answer is absolutely not. Absolutely not. If I was to be handing out the guidelines on this one, it'd be like, a guideline is a very strong no. Why? Because you take the randomness out. You take the adventure out. You take the spirit out. You take the unexpected away. And the unexpected can oftentimes be so much more fun. It can lead you into places that you never would have anticipated if you had just simply taken a prompt that made sense to you right there in the moment. And so this is one of those things where I think you can do it. Sure. Maybe from time to time, if you're like really stuck and like you pull a prompt and you're just like, what am I supposed to do with this thing? It's just not going to work. Yuck. Okay. Totally hear you. Prompts are prompts. Don't use it if you don't like it. Or think about the prompt in maybe a different way. Use it as an incidental thing instead of a direct thing. If I had gotten a prompt that said, there was one that came up like week 1. It was like, someone meets you at the fountain and you're talking to them. Could easily have, some sort of rumor or whatever swirling around there. We could have worked with that. Where it could be anything, right? And the story would work. Maybe not directly, maybe not smoothly, but I guarantee it would be interesting because you have the ability, I know you do, to take where you are, what's been written, and to take the prompt and find that imagination link between the two and make it interesting and make it good, and you can do it. I know you can. Another reason why I would not recommend, actually, another reason, it's the same reason, I'm just going to cite an example. When I went and I did my ceremony for coming up with getting a familiar, I had ideas as to what I would want to see. I had some notions as to might be funny. And then I ended up with a rodent who doesn't do anything except look at stuff. And that has been the biggest bonus to these episodes that anything has been. That unexpected mouse eye. I mean, just this story would not be this story without mouse eye. No question, no doubt. And so without the unexpectedness of pulling that stuff for the familiar, right? So 2 unexpected prompts. Mouse eye would not have come to fruition. Something else would have, and it would have worked, I'm sure, nicely, but would it have worked in this way as well as mouse eye has? I don't know, but this worked. So trust in the process, trust your prompts, work with them. If it really doesn't work, set it aside. Maybe you can write it in as an incidental thing. Pull another prompt. Pull another prompt. Be random. Pull another one. And if that doesn't fail, I mean, the list is there. You can go and you can shop. And don't take it as a disappointment or anything like that, where it's just like, you know, I just really, really, really want to pick my own prompt today. Hey, you do you. Perfect. Just the most important thing. Apparently it's really important because I just said most 3 times and the third one had to force itself out, is that you write. What you write, less important. The fact is that you're writing, you're thinking, you're imagining, you're getting your brain to work. And this is the most important piece. Whatever it takes to make that work, that's what you should be doing. I think that pretty well covers everything that I wanted to cover today. So let me bring us over to the drawing expressions haiku. Right there. A creative space, holistically supportive. Please like, share, subscribe, please. And with that, thank you so much for being a part of this journey, for watching this episode, for watching whatever episodes you happen to watch. And I look forward to seeing you again in 2 weeks' time. Until then, bye for now.